The desert's heat. The desert stretched out endlessly, a vast empty expanse of sand and scorching sun. Not a single cloud hung in the sky, and the heat was unbearable. The sand beneath the sun seemed to shimmer like a mirage, giving the illusion of movement. It was a place where life was harsh and survival was even harder. The wind, dry and relentless, blew across the dunes, but it offered no relief, only more heat. Buried beneath the sand, up to her neck, lay an alien girl. Her skin was a soft shade of green, and her large, wide eyes were now half closed. Sweat dripped down her face as the sun beat down upon her. She was motionless, her breathing slow and heavy. Every movement sent a sharp pain through her body, and she could feel the sand, warm and grainy, pressing in around her. She was trapped, helpless. This desert, this unforgiving wasteland, was where she would die. Her thoughts were clouded with memories of what had led to this moment. She had once been part of a peaceful civilization on her distant planet, far from the violence of the galaxy. But that peaceful world was shattered when the Empire came. They came with their ships and weapons, crushing everything in their path. She had been captured, dragged from her home and brought to this desert planet, a place of no return. The Empire believed she was a threat, and this was how they had decided to deal with her. The thought of being left here alone to die was more painful than any physical injury. As her vision began to fade, she thought she heard a voice. It was faint, distant, like a whisper carried by the wind. She opened her eyes, but all she could see was the shimmering heat rising from the sand. Her mind was starting to drift and her strength was failing. The desert had taken everything from her, the warmth of the sun, the air she needed to breathe, the hope she once had. She closed her eyes again, feeling the weight of the sand around her. It was over. There was no escape. No one would come for her. But just as her heart began to slow, something unexpected happened. A rumble echoed through the ground beneath her. The sand trembled ever so slightly. At first she thought it was the wind, but it wasn't. The rumble grew louder, and with it the ground around her began to shift. Something was moving beneath the surface. The alien girl's heart skipped a beat. She tried to move, to speak, but her body wouldn't respond. Panic surged through her chest, but her mind couldn't make sense of it. Was it the Empire? Or perhaps something else? The rumble grew closer. She could feel the vibrations in the sand growing stronger. The strange sensation made her eyes snap open once more. Was this the end, or was something or someone coming to save her? Her chest tightened with both fear and a small flicker of hope. But the answer was still unclear. The mystery deepened, and she had no choice but to wait, lying there in the desert, as the rumbling grew louder and closer. A mysterious visitor. The rumbling beneath the sand grew louder. A low thrumming sound that seemed to vibrate through her very bones. The alien girl's heart raced, her pulse pounding in her ears as she tried desperately to make sense of what was happening. The heat and exhaustion weighed her down, making every breath a struggle, but someone, was approaching. Her eyes fluttered open once more, fighting the overwhelming sense of doom that had threatened to take over her. For a moment, all she could see was the blinding sun above, shimmering over the endless dunes. Then, the sand beneath her began to move. Slowly at first, then faster, as though something was burrowing its way through the earth. The alien girl could feel the shift, the subtle disturbance as the ground around her began to stir. Her body trembled with a mixture of fear and curiosity. Who or what could be moving through the sand with such force? She had no strength left to move, to escape, and yet, in that moment, a strange sense of anticipation flickered in her chest. Was it an enemy coming to finish what the Empire had started? Or was it something else? Something that might save her? Then, with a sudden burst, the sand exploded upward in front of her. The alien girl winced as she shielded her eyes from the flying particles. And before she could react, a figure appeared, a silhouette against the sun. The dust began to settle, revealing a person, a man, though his appearance was strange, unlike anything she had seen before. He was tall, his features obscured by a dark, tightly fitted suit that seemed to shimmer with an otherworldly sheen. His helmet was a reflective surface and his eyes glowed faintly through the visor. He moved with purpose, his movements fluid and precise as he approached her. "Hold on," the stranger said, his voice deep and calm, but not without a sense of urgency. He knelt beside her, his gloved hands reaching for the sand that had once trapped her. Slowly, methodically, he began to dig her out, clearing the sand away with practiced ease. It was a miracle she wasn't buried deeper, but his focus was sharp, his every action deliberate. The alien girl tried to speak, but her voice came out as a weak rasp. She could barely form words as the last of the sand was lifted away, and she was free. The stranger gently helped her sit up, his touch surprisingly gentle despite the urgency of the situation. She was too weak to resist, too tired to even try. For a moment, the two of them just sat there in silence. The desert, once an unbearable force against her, now felt like a distant threat, as though the very heat had started to fade. But the girl's confusion was growing. Who was this person? How had he found her? And why was he helping her? The stranger's helmeted face remained a mystery, but there was something in his posture, in the way he moved, that told her he wasn't here by accident. He had come for her, but why? "You're safe now," he said, his voice soothing but stern. "You need to move quickly. They'll be here soon." The alien girl tried to speak again, but the words didn't come. She couldn't understand everything, but one thing was clear. The Empire wasn't far behind, and this stranger, whoever he was, had come to protect her. Before she could ask any more questions, the man turned and began to move, signaling for her to follow. His movements were swift, confident, and he seemed to know exactly where he was going. The girl, still weak, didn't hesitate to follow him. In that moment, she realized that whatever her fate might be, it was now tied to this mysterious visitor. The stranger's intentions. The alien girl's legs wobbled beneath her as she struggled to keep up with the mysterious figure. Every step felt like a battle against the heat and exhaustion, but there was something urgent in his pace, something that pushed her forward, even when her body screamed for rest. His shadow moved across the sand like a dark specter, guiding her through the barren wasteland with remarkable speed and purpose. Despite her weakened state, the alien girl could sense that the desert had not yet relinquished its hold on her. The hot wind still cut through her skin like a blade, and the sand beneath her feet shifted with every step. But with each step she took toward the stranger, the desert seemed to lose its power. The fear that had gripped her heart began to fade, replaced by something else, a flicker of hope, something she hadn't felt in what seemed like an eternity. They moved in silence for what felt like hours. The endless dunes stretched in every direction, with no sign of life except for the stranger and the alien girl. She wanted to ask him questions, so many questions, but her throat was dry and her thoughts were jumbled. She couldn't find the words. She could barely focus on anything other than the strange, rhythmic thrum of the sand beneath their feet. Finally, as the sun began to sink lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the desert, the stranger halted. He turned to face her, his reflective helmet catching the dying light in a way that made his face unreadable. He had not spoken once during their journey, leaving her alone with her thoughts. But now he stood still, like a statue, waiting. "Why did you save me?" she managed to croak, her voice raw and weak. The stranger didn't immediately respond. Instead, he reached into a compartment on his suit and pulled out a small, metallic device. It whirred softly in his hand before he held it out toward her. "Because you are not just any alien," he said, his voice now much clearer, more deliberate than before. "And because the galaxy needs you." The girl frowned, confusion clouding her expression. She opened her mouth to speak, but the words didn't come. He seemed to notice her hesitation and sighed, setting the device down on the sand between them. "My name is Callan," he said after a long pause, his voice still calm but carrying an edge of urgency. I'm part of a group, an underground, resistance. We've been watching you for some time now. The alien girl stared at him, her pulse quickening. Watching me? She asked, her voice trembling slightly. Why? Who are you? Callan straightened, his eyes behind the helmet darkened, though the faint glow of his eyes still lingered. The Empire is hunting you, he said, his words sharp, filled with the weight of truth. They know you are the key to something, to a power they cannot control. They believe if they erase you, their rule will be unchallenged. But what they don't understand is that you're not just any prisoner. The alien girl's chest tightened. What power? She asked, her voice small. Callan's hand reached up to the side of his helmet, and with a swift motion he unclipped it. The helmet came off, revealing his face for the first time. His features were human, but there was something strange in his eyes, something both familiar and foreign. We've been monitoring your planet for years, he continued, his voice now softer, more personal. We know about your people's abilities, the ones that even the Empire fears. And you're the last of your kind with that power. The girl's breath hitched in her throat. She had heard whispers of her people's power, the energy they could harness, the control they had over elements and forces that were beyond any ordinary species. But the Empire had wiped out her planet, leaving her the sole survivor. She had never understood the extent of her powers, only that she could feel them deep within her, waiting to be unlocked. Callan's eyes softened as he watched her process the information. We need you to fight back. The Empire will stop at nothing to control this galaxy. But if we stand together, if you use what's inside you, we can defeat them. The desert wind kicked up again, swirling around them. But now, the alien girl felt something she hadn't felt in a long time, a surge of energy. The sand beneath, her feet felt less like a prison and more like a place where something could begin to change. The stranger, this Callan, had brought her here for a reason. And though the road ahead was uncertain, one thing was clear. Her survival had just become the first step in something much bigger than herself. Flashback to the past, the alien girl's mind swirled, and as she stumbled through the desert, her senses began to fade in and out. The harsh heat of the sun, the soft but relentless pull of exhaustion, it all started to blur together. But in the quiet moments, when her thoughts quieted and the world around her seemed to fall away, memories from her past began to surface like fragments of a broken dream. The world she once knew was nothing like the desolate desert stretching before her now. It was a lush, vibrant planet. A planet full of life, where the air was thick with the scent of blooming flowers, and the sky was alive with the vibrant colors of distant stars. It was a place where peace reigned, where her people, the Azoth, lived in harmony with the natural world. They were known throughout the galaxy for their connection to the forces of nature, their ability to channel energy in ways no other species could. The Azoth were a gentle people who sought to understand the universe through knowledge, not through conquest, but the Empire never cared for peace. The girl's memories shifted, like the turning of a page in an old, forgotten book. She saw herself, as a child, running through the emerald forests with her siblings, their laughter echoing in the air. She saw her parents, wise and kind, standing at the edge of a sacred river, their faces filled with contentment. They had always taught her to listen to the wind, to feel the pulse of the earth beneath her feet. Balance is key, they would always say. Without it, everything will fall apart. But balance was not what the Empire sought. She remembered the day the sky had darkened not from clouds but from the ships of the Empire. They arrived without warning, their massive warships blotting out the sun. The Azoth had tried to fight, but their peaceful ways could not stand against the Empire's relentless technology. Her people had been no match for their brutal weapons, their greed, and their hunger for power. The first wave of attacks came from the sky, followed by ground forces that leveled the villages. Her parents, her siblings, they were gone before she had a chance to understand what was happening. She had been captured in the chaos. Her world had crumbled, and the last thing she remembered was being dragged away from the burning remains of her home, her hands bound, her spirit broken. But she hadn't died. No, she had been taken to another world, a prison disguised as a planet, a desert wasteland where the Empire dumped their unwanted prisoners, left to wither in the unforgiving heat. She had survived by sheer willpower, living on scraps, hiding from the Empire's patrols, trying to hold on to whatever was left of her humanity. As the memories faded, the alien girl snapped back to the present, the harsh wind biting at her skin. She blinked, her vision blurry for a moment as she struggled to stay focused on the present. Callan was watching her, his expression unreadable. "You're thinking about your home, aren't you?" he asked quietly, his voice soft as if he understood the weight of her thoughts. She nodded slowly, the ache in her chest deepening. The life she had lost felt like it was slipping away with each passing moment, like sand through her fingers. "The Empire took everything from you," Callan said, his tone hardening. "But you're still here. You're still alive. And you're not alone anymore." The words stung, but in a way they were also a lifeline. She could still feel the pulse of her home, deep within her, somewhere beneath the surface. And now, maybe for the first time in years, she felt like she had a chance to fight back, to reclaim what was lost. The past was gone, but the future was hers to shape. A dangerous revelation. The alien girl stumbled alongside Callan, her body still weak, but the fire of something new burned in her chest. As the landscape around them began to change, the towering dunes starting to give way to jagged rocks and dark cliffs, she could feel the tension between them. There was something in the way Callan moved, the way he glanced over his shoulder, every few moments as though he were constantly on alert. But it wasn't just caution she sensed. It was something more. There was a secret buried in the air between them, a truth Callan had yet to share. And the longer they traveled, the more that unspoken truth weighed heavily on her shoulders. They stopped at the edge of a small canyon, the walls rising sharply into the sky. The wind had died down and the silence around them felt oppressive. For the first time, Callan turned fully toward her, his face no longer hidden behind the reflective visor of his helmet. "You're wondering why I'm helping you," he said, his voice low but firm. "You're wondering what I really want." His gaze softened slightly, but his words held a hard edge. "It's not just about survival. It's about something much bigger." The alien girl narrowed her eyes, a mixture of confusion and suspicion flooding her thoughts. She had been trying to understand why Callan had come for her, why he seemed to be so determined to protect someone like her, someone who had nothing left to give. "Tell me what you mean," she said, her voice stronger now, more sure of herself. Callan sighed, the weight of what he was about to reveal hanging in the air like a storm cloud. He took a step forward, his boots crunching against the gravel of the canyon floor, and leaned against one of the canyon's jagged walls. For a moment he seemed lost in thought, as if the words he needed to say were caught between the past and the present. "The Empire isn't just after you because of your species," Callan began, his voice grave. "They know the Azoth are powerful, but more importantly, they know what you are." His eyes met hers and she felt a cold shiver run through her. "What do you mean, what I am?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Callan looked away, his jaw tightening. "You aren't just an Azoth. You're the last of your kind to carry the most powerful gift your people ever possessed. The ability to harness the purest energy, the energy that flows through the very fabric of the universe. Your people called it the Source." The alien girl's breath caught in her throat. The Source? She had heard of it, but only in legends. Stories, told around campfires, passed down by her ancestors. A power so great that it could bend reality itself. But those were only stories, fables designed to inspire hope in the darkest times. She had never truly believed it. "The Source is the key to everything," Callan continued, his voice steady, but filled with urgency. "It's what the Empire has been hunting for centuries. It's what they need to cement their rule over the entire galaxy. And you—" He paused, his gaze locking with hers, a mix of awe and fear in his eyes. You're the one who can control it. You're the last one who can access it. The alien girl's mind raced. But I don't even know how to control it. I don't even understand what it is. Her voice shook as she spoke, fear creeping into her chest. Callan's expression softened. No one does. Not fully. But that's why you're here. Why we've come for you. The resistance, we need you to unlock it, to use it against them. If we don't stop the Empire now, they'll destroy everything. Your people, my people, the whole galaxy. Her heart pounded in her chest as she tried to grasp what Callan was saying. The source. The power of the universe itself. It was too much to comprehend. She had spent her entire life trying to survive, to stay hidden from the Empire's wrath. But now she was being asked to be more than a survivor, to be a weapon. You're asking me to fight, she said, her voice trembling, not from fear, but from the weight of what that meant. To fight back against an empire that destroyed everything I ever knew. Callan took a step toward her, his expression unwavering. Yes, but it's not just for revenge. It's for the future of all the people the Empire has crushed. The future of the galaxy. Your people's power. It's the last hope we have. For the first time since her world was destroyed, the alien girl felt something stir deep within her, an echo of the power she had once felt on her home planet. It wasn't just her survival that mattered now. She had been given a chance to reclaim what was lost, to fight back in a way she never thought possible. But was she ready? Could she trust this stranger? And more importantly, could she control the source within her? Her heart thudded louder in her chest, and as the wind began to pick up again, she knew that there was no going back. The time to decide was now. The Empire's pursuit. The evening air in the canyon grew thick with tension, and the once quiet desert began to hum with a low, distant rumble. It was a sound the alien girl knew all too well, the unmistakable hum of an Empire's warship breaking through the atmosphere. She froze, her instincts screaming at her to run, but there was nowhere to hide. The Empire ships were already in the skies above them, casting dark shadows across the ground. Callan's eyes narrowed, his face hardening as he swiftly moved to a hidden panel in the canyon's rocky walls. They found us, he muttered, under his breath, his fingers working quickly to pull out a small device. The screen flickered to life, displaying a series of signals, movement, ships, and the unmistakable signature of an approaching fleet. We don't have much time. The alien girl's pulse quickened. She had survived on this forsaken planet by staying hidden, avoiding the Empire's patrols at all costs. But now, with the Empire's forces descending on them, her survival instincts kicked in. Fear clamped down on her chest like a vice, but something else began to rise, something fierce and untamed. They've tracked us, Callan continued, his voice low but filled with resolve. Their sensors can detect energy signatures like yours. You've been a target ever since you arrived here. The girl's mind raced as she stared at the screen. She had never understood how the Empire was able to find her so easily. But now the pieces were starting to fit together. Her powers, the strange energy she had always felt pulsing inside her, it wasn't just something to be hidden. It was something the Empire could sense. The realization hit her hard. She was not just a survivor. She was a beacon. Are we too late? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Callan shook his head, his hands moving quickly, adjusting the device. No, but we need to move now. If they've found us here, it's only a matter of time before they send their ground forces, and they won't stop until they have you. Her eyes scanned the canyon walls, the jagged edges looming like silent witnesses to the coming chaos. There was no escape, no place to hide, not with their advanced technology and relentless pursuit. But then, a sharp mechanical whine echoed through the air, and she felt it, an unsettling vibration beneath her feet. The desert trembled once again, but this time, it was not from the distant rumbling of Empire ships. No, this was different. Closer. The ground itself seemed to shudder, a sign of something much bigger approaching. Callan's face grew pale beneath, his rugged exterior. They've already deployed their drones. Before the alien girl could react, a flurry of metallic shapes swooped down from the sky, their sleek, terrifying forms cutting through the air. They moved with precision, their shadows darkening the canyon walls as they descended into the narrow gorge. These were no ordinary soldiers. They were machines, perfectly crafted with cold, glowing eyes and weapons designed to incapacitate. The Empire's elite drones, relentless and efficient. They won't stop, Callan muttered under his breath, his body tensing. He turned toward her, his hand gripping her arm. We need to fight back. The alien girl's heart pounded in her chest. She had always kept her powers hidden, afraid of what they might bring. But now, with the Empire closing in, there was no choice. She could no longer run, no longer hide. The time had come to face her fears. And the Empire. The first drone landed with a thud, its sleek metallic legs cracking the stone beneath it. The air around them grew heavy with the scent of ozone as it activated its weapons. But the alien girl didn't flinch. She felt a stirring deep inside her, an echo of the power she had inherited from her people, a power she had been running from for so long. The energy within her began to pulse, growing stronger as the drones circled them, their glowing eyes locking onto their targets. Callan pulled her behind a rocky outcrop, his face taut with concentration. They're here for you. And if they get you, it's over for everyone. You have to unlock it. You have to use the source. But the girl felt the weight of his words like an anchor. She didn't know how. She didn't understand how to control it, the source, the power that had once been the heart of her people. But in that moment, as the first drone fired a blast toward them, something inside her clicked. A surge of energy erupted from her, like an invisible force ripping through. The air, the blast from the drone missed by inches, redirected by the power she had no words for. The ground beneath her feet cracked, and she could feel the air around her hum with the pulse of something ancient, something powerful. She could feel the source awakening responding to her call. The drone hesitated for a moment as if sensing the change in the air. Then it lunged toward her again, but this time the girl was ready. She extended her hand, and with a fierce, focused movement, the energy she had been hiding for so long exploded outward. The drone's metal body was thrown back by the force, its systems short-circuiting as it crumpled into a heap. Callan watched in stunned silence. The girl, the last of the Azoth, had just unlocked the power she had been born to wield. They're not going to stop, Callan said, his voice barely audible over the sound of the drone's approaching engines. But neither are we. And for the first time in what felt like forever, the alien girl felt something rise within her, a sense of purpose, a clarity. She wasn't just running anymore. She was fighting for something far bigger than herself. The Empire had made a grave mistake, and now they were going to pay. The final stand. The canyon, once a place of calm, now reverberated with the sounds of impending destruction. The drones circled like vultures, their glowing eyes scanning every inch of the rocky landscape. The alien girl's pulse thudded in her ears as she stood beside Callan, her breath coming in sharp, shallow gasps. Her hand still tingled with the raw energy that had surged through her moments ago. But there was no time to savor the power. The enemy was closing in, and there was no escape. Get ready, Callan said, his voice hard, but there was a trace of admiration in his eyes. He looked at her not as a stranger anymore, but as someone who held the fate of much more than just herself. The girl nodded, her heart racing in anticipation. She had never wanted to be a warrior, never asked for the burden of her people's legacy. But now, in this moment, it was clear. The power inside her wasn't just a gift, it was a weapon, and she was the one who would wield it. As the first drone dove toward them with its blinding speed, the girl closed her eyes for a heartbeat, letting the desert wind rush past her. She could feel the energy swirling inside her again, pulsing with ancient fury, as though the very air around her was charged with the memories of her lost home. This wasn't just her fight. It was the fight of every single life the Empire had destroyed, and she wasn't going to back down. With a deep breath, she extended her hands, palms out, and in that instant, the canyon around them seemed to warp. The rocks trembled, the earth groaned, and a crackling wave of pure force shot from her fingertips. The drone attempted to avoid it, but the energy surged forward, overwhelming its mechanical systems. A brilliant flash of light exploded in the air, and the drone crumpled mid-flight, its glowing eyes flickering before it fell to the canyon floor in a heap of twisted metal. Callan's eyes widened in disbelief. That was... one down. The alien girl interrupted, her voice steely and filled with newfound purpose. But there was no time to celebrate. The rest of the drones were closing in, their weapons locking onto her with deadly precision. She didn't flinch. She didn't hesitate. The next wave came faster. At least 5 more drones, their engines roaring like thunder as they descended upon her. She raised her hands again, but this time the force didn't just come from her fingertips. The very rocks beneath her feet began to shift, as though answering her call. The canyon wall seemed to bend and stretch, warping with the power she was learning to control. With a single motion, the ground beneath the drones cracked open like a great mouth, sending massive chunks of rock flying toward them. The drones attempted to retreat, but they were too slow. One by one, they were obliterated, their metal bodies crashing to the earth in sparks and debris. Callan stood at her side, firing his blaster at the remaining drones that tried to approach from the sides, but the alien girl barely noticed him. Her focus was entirely on the storm of power she was now controlling, her connection to the source growing stronger with every passing moment. It was like the desert itself was alive, answering her call, willing to fight for her. But then, just as the last drone fell, a shadow loomed overhead, larger, darker, and far more menacing than any of the machines that had come before. A massive ship, the likes of which she had only seen in her nightmares. The Empire's flagship, its sleek, ominous silhouette blotting out the last of the setting sun. "That's not just a ship," Callan muttered, his face grim. "That's their command vessel. The leader is on board. They won't stop until they have you, until they destroy everything." The alien girl's heart raced, but it wasn't fear that gripped her now. It was resolve. She had unlocked the source, the very power that had been buried deep inside her for so long. She could feel it coursing through her, stronger than ever before. The leader of the Empire was the last piece in this war, a war that would either end with the galaxy under the Empire's iron fist or with the fall of that reign. "We fight," she said, her voice unwavering, her eyes locked on the dark shadow of the ship above them.